Okay, and we are live for this week's Aligned guest stream. Today I'm being joined by two of the co-founders from ZKPassport, Mike and Théo. Welcome. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Boris. Great to be here. Really excited about talking about what we're building and digital identity and ZKPassport.
Absolutely, yeah. Super important topics. One of the topics that, I see Niall in the chat. One of the topics that honestly got me really excited about crypto when I was first exploring the space and the technology. So yeah, this is always fun for me because I get to chat with cool people who are building really cool things that I think will have a big impact on how we interact with each other over the internet. So I guess with that, maybe we'll start with some background. Like let's have the listeners and viewers learn a little bit about who I have here today. Maybe Mike, I'll put you up on stage first.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the blockchain space for probably over 10 years now, going way back to 2014, working on various projects throughout that time. I was at MakerDAO for about 3-4 years, back from 2018. That was a really fun project. Loved that a lot. Super important to have a stablecoin at the time. I think Tether was just getting started, and as an IOU based stablecoin, I wanted to see something different, and so I discovered the MakerDAO team with this algorithmic, at the time purely ETH-backed stablecoin. That was super exciting. So I joined them, and we built that out. And then working on other various projects in the years that followed, and then I just stumbled across ZK somehow. I think it was actually through ZK podcast. Got the ZK podcast mug here. Actually, funny story about that. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, cool.
Notebook.
That's great. Yeah, Theo and I actually met at ZK Summit. So that's also a fun story. Going back to ZK, so I discovered that. I thought it was super interesting, just understanding kind of what's possible and the kind of primitives that it unlocked. And then I wanted to dive deeper, and so my background is software engineering, so I wanted to lean into that, but apply it to ZK and get more of an understanding of how it actually worked. So I kind of dabbled with Circom for a little bit, and then stumbled across. I was actually a big fan of Aztec for many years, so I participated in the initiation ceremony there. Then I discovered Noir, and so Noir is this amazing DSL. At the time, it was very early, so it was still pretty janky, but it's come a long way, and it's much more refined now. So as a way to learn Noir, I wanted to have some practical, some kind of a project to work on. And at the time, I think it was originally I had this the ability to have a signed JSON payload. So you could, and then you can prove in a zero knowledge circuit anything about it. So you could selectively reveal a certain key value pair. And then because it's signed, you have that, it's basically an attestation. And then if you think about what an e-passport is or a national ID, it's actually very similar. It's not JSON, but it's digitally signed by the governments that issue it. And then, when I discovered that was even more amazing. And then, NFC enabled e-passports and national IDs. And then around that time too, NFC enabled devices were more and more popular. They're pretty much ubiquitous now. Like most smartphones have the ability to read NFC, and Apple have recently opened it up. And so, sorry, this is a super long intro, huh? I just kind of dove right in.
No, it's great.
Hang on, I'm getting to the, and then to kind of bring that to a close, I built out some prototypes for ZKPassport, and just it was a really cool way to learn.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely dig into a lot of the things you started talking about there about NFCs, this idea of a digitally signed JSON that the government is signing basically. But let's hear about Theo's background, and then we'll jump into that.
There's a point at which our stories converge.
You can do the conversion. All right, the converging point. So on my side, so I'm Theo. I'm like I'm a software engineer. I've been doing like software engineering for a while, even before joining blockchain ecosystem. I started to go into the blockchain ecosystem around late 2021, like with regular like some Solidity contract. After a while, I quickly got into like this idea of ZK. The first time I got kind of like introduced to the technology was more from the the succinctness property, like the kind of roll-up stuff. But as I got to learn a little bit more about it, the privacy aspect was really what actually interested me more. The first time I got to, I tell that story all the time. I got to interact with ZK was at ZK Hack. It's like a hackathon, ZK focused. Now it's more like broadly privacy, but like ZK was like the main focal point. So that was the first edition in Lisbon. So I live in Lisbon, so that was very convenient for me. So I happened to randomly hear about it, so I just signed up. I was like, yeah, I might as well try it. And on the day,
was that ZK1? Was that the very first ZK hack?
That was the first ZK hack. So they did like 4 in total. No way, 5 now, right? Yeah, 5 because we had the one in Berlin recently. So 5 in total, and like that was the very first edition. So like the one in Lisbon. And at the time, I didn't write in the circuit before that. So that was my first time like writing a ZK circuit. And I went straight up to Noir, like the language that we use today with ZKPassport for like our circuit. Like Aztec was a sponsor, but they didn't have any bounties, but I still wanted to go for it anyway. We won like some general prize. So I was with like one of the guy who actually ended up working at ZK for a while. Now he's working at Leiden. His name is Gerald. And we built something called Fruity Friends. Like a simple idea, was a quite simple project. But the general idea is that you have like a privacy preserving dating app. So you have preferences, you want to keep them private, but you want to know if other people have the same preferences as you. So like kind of like common interest.
Preferences / kinks, these things about you that you want to have in common with others, but not necessarily shout it out to the world.
Right? Yeah. There's pretty strong incentive to keep them private. But we realized soon enough that it was probably quite limited to do that with only ZK. So like 2PC or MPC might be better for that. But one thing we realized is that the main issue could be that you could kind of like bot the system. So you could create a bunch of accounts and try to narrow down the preferences of someone by just having one preference. So, like
you're essentially brute forcing kinks, right?
Yeah.
You create 1,000 accounts, you brute force all the different varieties. Yeah, I like all the stuff, man. And then you can see everyone's overlap with you.
So that would be a big problem. So I was like, the one way you could kind of like limit it would be to have like some kind of identity system where you have one person, one account, and so that
Sybil resistance.
Yeah, enter Sybil resistance, and that my general interest for like identity solutions. So from that point forward, I was kind of thrusted into the ZK space, and at the same time with a clear focus on identity. So I started to scout the different solutions. So the current solution at the time was like Polygon ID, which is now Privado ID, and World. So I kind of tried both. They had like nice SDK. Like World was probably a more simple SDK.
What if eyeballs is your kink? Would that have been?
It's a bit of a tricky onboarding. Like first we ask for your kink, and then we ask for your eyes. It's like that's kind of tricky.
In that order. Yeah.
But I was like, World is not too bad, but I didn't scan my iris straight up. It took me a while to actually scan it. I ended up doing it, but you need to reach the people. You need to reach people with the orb. So like, first of all, you need to find the hardware, and even if you have it, you need to convince people to actually scan the iris, which they may not want to do. So that was one of the downsides I found about it.
I personally haven't had my balls scanned by the orb
yet. You didn't want to do it.
I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, we can talk about that later. But yeah.
But I was like, then there's also Polygon ID. It was the API they had was a bit more complex, but still you could use it. But the main issue I had with it was you needed an active issuer. So you need like to find like some KYC provider. that would issue credentials, and then you can make a ZK proof on top of that credential. But you have like another layer of trust you need to add on the KYC provider. So,
yeah, this is like a critical differentiating point between ZKPassport and all the other identity providers, identity verification providers, where we're taking government-attested identity and we're keeping that provenance all the way through to the verification step. But as soon as you intervene there and you basically reattest to it, it's almost like, first of all, why would you do that? You've wasted all that provenance, and then essentially it's just breaking the chain of trust, really.
Yeah, and so considering this, I tried some stuff with like government issue ID because I was thinking like one thing that people have is like a passport, a driving license, or a national ID. Try something with ZKML, but that's not, you can't do much with that. You don't have any guarantee. You're just processing an image. What are you going to do with this? Even if you have ZK, it doesn't mean it's like, ZK is dependent on the kind of data you feed it. And then I heard about passport having a chip in them. I actually do know, and I think most people don't, even though that's actually ubiquitous among like most passport. It's actually not such a common knowledge that there's a chip
on their own phone too, right? There's like a constant wow moment I see in people's eyes when if I demo it to them and they see my face and my details loaded up into the app. That's a pretty cool moment. Or their own passport, especially. It's like, wait, what?
It's actually a process that people have used, but without realizing, like I did before, when you go at automated gate in the airport, they actually read the data from the chip. Now, it's not apparent that it's actually what happens, but most people don't. But that's actually what happens.
Exact same process.
Yeah. We do the same thing on a phone, and we use ZK to do the whole process client side. So that's essentially how I kind of converged to this. So after what I figured out there was a chip in passport and there was signed data, I started to do experimentation on my own and did my own thing. And eventually I met Michael in ZK Summit Athens. We had 2 talks, workshop right after the other.
Thanks, Anna. She put us on like back to back, and we had pretty much the exact same talk.
Shout out to Anna Rose.
Yeah, we had like a speakers dinner the night before, and so I found Theo, and I was I think I recognized him. He's he's got very unique style about him. So I was like, I could sort of notice him from across the room. and I was like, hey man, so we're doing the talk tomorrow back to back. It's the same topic. Did you want to like coordinate and we can have maybe some variation? So we did, and I'm glad we did because then we could make it more interesting, I think, for the audience.
But a nice thing
Awesome.
that follow after that is that when we met again in Krakow and during the ZK Krakow, and we made a project together. So that was our first time like really working together.
That was a fun one. That was a banger. I don't know if anyone's familiar with. Go ahead. So I don't want to take it. So you're like building it up, and I just come and like steal the the highlight.
Oh yeah, that project was quite funny. I mean, we had like a lot of. It was called Corn Hub. Corn Hub, as in like a reference to a common website that most people know.
We cleaned up on the boundaries that one. That was amazing. But essentially, it was very similar to the actual Pornhub, but it was obviously but there was corn, like corn cobs, corn kernels, puns, and it's on Twitter somewhere. There's a tweet somewhere around with it. And who would have thought, by the way, that this has become a reality now? Like, so in the UK, it basically looks like Cornhub in a sense because they have the same modal that we had with like verify your age as of a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so but it's a bit more the way they implement it, right? That's a bit scary, like random, like debit card or like
kind of like go to some dodgy payment provider. It's not reassuring at all. And then you've got to put your full name. Apparently, this is what someone told me about the experience. And then you put like your name and your address in there. I don't know if personally. Apparently that's what you do, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was a
great. And then I thought we went on quite a detour with that, but you had some more on the 3D Friends. I think you kind of tied it up nicely though.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Like I guess the corner was like the bonding time for us, and after that, that's pretty much where we started to work together more closely.
Yeah, like proper hackathon, right? Like staying up to like 3-4 a.m. Nice.
That was fun. And working on a T-shirt as well.
Oh man, that was awesome. So Anna had this. We had this like T-shirt painting session with paints and t-shirt, and so I took the opportunity to take like an hour away from the coding and hacking, and I painted the Corn Hub logo. I'll see if I can find a link actually.
That's so I guess you guys have been working together as ZKPassport officially for about a year now, just over a year.
Yeah, around that. Yeah, around the year. Yeah.
Cool. But you both, before then, been working on verifiable identity using ZK. I mean, that's what you both just told me. So that was really cool. And I mean, I think I love the background. Thank you. That's a great story. I feel like a good place to start would actually just be like, two things. One is, how would you explain ZKPassport to somebody in, a minute, the elevator pitch, if you will. And then also, what is what's the problem that you're solving? Like, I have an answer to this, and I think you alluded to this through a lot of your stories, but yeah, like elevator pitch, and what is this problem that people maybe aren't thinking enough about?
Can I take it there?
What? Yeah, sure. I'll take the lift. So ZKPassport. So the idea is that we use government-issued IDs, passport, national IDs that have a chip in them. That data, we can read it with the phone. So like that's what our app is for. It reads the data through NFC. Most phones have NFC. And that data is stored locally on the device, encrypted, never leaves it. And then we generate locally a proof, like a zero-knowledge proof, on top of that signed data, which we can verify against the public key of the issuing country. And so that attests to the validity, the authenticity of the document. And then after that, you can selectively disclose whatever information you want to prove about yourself. That could be if you're over 18, if you're from a given country, or your official name, or whatever information you can derive from an ID, essentially. So that's pretty much the pitch, the elevator pitch.
I can have a go at it from a slightly different perspective. So I think like super high level, ZKPassport is non-profit, credibly neutral, public goods identity infrastructure. That's what we're building out here. The idea is that you've got government-attested identity documents, so like e-passports or national ID cards. They're becoming more and more prevalent across Europe. National ID cards in a lot of countries are mandatory, so you hit an almost 100% saturation rate. And we have this this registry, root registry with certificate registry and circuit registry. But the certificate registry, that is where all of the root certificates for all the different countries are stored in this, like a Merkle tree that we have oracles that update. And that becomes like the chain of trust. And so these are the same certificates that airports around the world use. And when you're proving your identity or creating a passport proof, essentially you're proving that one of these countries has signed over an intermediate certificate, but then that has signed over your passport document or your national ID. And all our circuits do is essentially like verify that all the way through. And it's a lot harder than that. There's a lot of different signature algorithms and hashing algorithms and edge cases that we've been working hard to fix. But yeah, you essentially have this, decentralized, and I call it decentralized because if you kind of think of all the different sovereign countries in the world, and each of those, who would you say is, the most appropriate entity to attest over the fact of, your credentials? If you change your name or you get married, you go to the government and they recognize that, they give you the certificate for it. They're the ones that issue the documents. So I think that's really cool how it's like this kind of globally federated system. And we just basically want to have provide this infrastructure for other projects to plug into and leverage these cool primitives. And there are many of them you can imagine. And essentially any kind of combination of being able to selectively reveal information about yourself, that basically anything the government has signed over, you can have this in a ZK proof and you can use it in some way. And so SIBA resistance is provided by this unique identifier that emerges, typically called like a nullifier. We just call it a unique identifier. And it's always the same for your passport. So you can reveal just that, and that becomes your unique identifier. And then we also scope it per service to provide privacy. So for example, you didn't want two different services comparing and they can find the same person that used service A and service B. And then again, you can have this sub-scope where you can have it different again. So for example, maybe servers say wanted to have voting polls. So for the first poll, it would be always the same identifier, so that that's how you can record that vote, uniquely. But then to set another poll, you don't want to link the person between the two polls. And then you've got like dynamic ability to have these proofs of like, I'm over 18, but not my age. That's a super cool. That's a really cool primitive, and a whole bunch of others, different combinations of like, yeah. So that's ZKPassport in a nutshell.
That's ZKPassport. There's so much to dig into because.
Sorry, it wasn't a 1 minute nutshell, but
no. That was at all.
Yeah, that was a long elevator, Michael.
That's why I asked you to go first. I should have just left it at that. We got there. There's like a lot of cool stuff. I mean, I feel like also I have been paying attention to the, let's call it the identity space for a while. And some of these things maybe seem obvious to me, like the Sybil resistance one, like people who are in crypto who have maybe participated in airdrops or had to KYC or run some kind of airdrop like this. We understand the importance of making sure that we have unique individuals involved in some process. A more practical thing would be, like you were saying, governments voting. You obviously don't want people voting more than once. Again, you talked about a lot of different use cases, and classic ZK use cases like selectively revealing or proving details about yourself without having to reveal all of your information. Go to the liquor store, prove that you're of drinking age, but not reveal your name, address, actual date of birth. Like what are the use cases that you're building towards right now that you're most sort of like seeing as like a near-term killer use case? Yeah. Do you want to take this, Theo?
Right now it's like definitely there's a skew definitely toward age, that's for sure. That's the main age verification seems to be the trend lately.
The hot topic.
It's like speaking up. I mean, we talked about the UK with the Online Safety Act. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all the details of that legislation, but
I think it makes sense, like to protect minors from this kind of content online. But it's how you go about it. That's where the details.
So how you go about it. You don't want to rush it in a way that's unprepared because you don't want to risk the data of people, the privacy of people. If you rush it, people are just going to integrate a bunch of random solutions that may like just expose people eventually. So maybe it's rushed a bit. But other countries are also pushing towards that. Australia is going to come to that similar thing, but for social media by the end of the year. The EU wants to do the same for the entire continent within the next 12 months. Some country in Europe have already done an attempt at it, like France, for example. So definitely that's a big trend, age verification. I don't know where this is going exactly beyond age verification, but I think there's probably more coming. Might sound a bit frightening to some extent, but you definitely want to provide some true privacy-preserving identity solution for that kind of things. Beyond age verification, I mean, we definitely have like the proof of personhood, or like uniqueness. So definitely like prevent spams, bots. It can be applied both in the context of Web3 for Sybil resistance or like Web2 where you want to have like a bot-free platform. Like social media could be very useful. Those are definitely the two big use cases. After you have like, I think more
in the age of AI too, this is going to be very interesting, right? Where LLM agents, how do you know the difference? How do you know that you're not a dog on the internet? Well, you could have this, so for decentralized media too, like Farcaster, you can have these, these like proof of like name badge or just the ability to show that this is a unique identifier from a unique human being, at least they have a passport, and this strong super resistance that you get. And I call it strong because you might have like 2 passports, the people that have that, maybe 3, very unlikely to have 4. And beyond that point, you're probably like a spy or like some kind of like government operative or I don't know, terrorist maybe. So then you don't have, and maybe, you give your agent the ability to do this, but you're still limited. So you don't have like thousands and thousands of really human-like capacitive Turing test agents out there. Another one that I'm really excited about is, and this really comes into like being something that's practical and that's going to allow essentially to bring this all the way back to Satoshi's original vision, actually, of electronic peer-to-peer cash. If you kind of unpack cash, the properties of it, it's private in the sense that you give it to someone, only they know about it, and it's also stable. Generally speaking, so it's a stable unit of account for businesses to use. So we're building out this other product. So ZKPassport is like the nonprofit, identity infrastructure. This other, the commercial enterprise we have it's still in the works. There's still some work to go on it. It's Obsidian wallet. And Obsidian is this, you can kind of imagine like a Revolut, but or Monzo, the really nice UX, but the payment infrastructure is all blockchain and with the mix of ZK and other stuff. So the crypto rails. So now you can have, so the key ingredient here though, that's critical for mass adoption is privacy. So just like we have currently at the bank level, but you need to have it at a level like this. And so that's going to allow for proper peer-to-peer cash payments without, you pay, you split the bill with your friend. They shouldn't be able to see your entire transaction history. You buy a coffee at the local coffee store. They shouldn't be able to see, the barista shouldn't know about your mortgage repayments. And then that's going to allow people to use it for real world use cases, right? Like buying groceries, paying your mortgage. No one does that with Web3 money because there's no privacy. So it kind of stops short there. It's just trading meme coins and shit coins.
Yeah, I think a good illustration is that you talked about this, Michael, before, is that many people seem to think that people don't care about privacy, like users don't care about privacy.
They don't think they care about it.
It's like it's more that they don't think about it. For example, if you ask someone if they care about privacy, they may say no, and then you ask them, would you then give me a record of all your transactions you did last month?
Yeah, do you mind just going into your Revolut real quick and just do an export, a CSV export, please? I put a few people on the spot. I felt bad, but all of a sudden they have this introspective moment. They're like, oh, well, no, obviously not. It's different. Is it though? It's kind of the same thing. It's actually, that's more private than a public ledger that everyone can see for the rest of eternity. And then so fast forwarding a little bit into the future of, okay, cool. So let's say we have this product with private stablecoins. That's still not going to be enough because what's going to inevitably happen is the regulators aren't going to be happy and they're going to apply pressure to exchanges. And so this all comes down, this is going to be a UX issue where you want the user to be able to use these stablecoins and businesses and then off ramp onto an exchange or to a bank on an off ramp easily without having to worry about, any issues. And so that means the exchanges, these real world points where, you get on or off ramp, they're going to need to be okay with it. And so you need some level of compliance, but you don't want to compromise the user's privacy. And the existing, kind of paradigm where you have these centralized KYC providers, that's not really compatible with this. And so we're going to be able to plug in ZKPassport as this, centralized identity infrastructure, identity provider into this. So every time you're transferring around this private stablecoin through ZK, you've kind of inverted the KYC now. The user is doing the KYC themselves. They are proving that they're not from a sanctioned country, they're not on a sanctions list. All these cool things you can do now, a best effort approach to be able to utilize these private stablecoins and realize that awesome dream of peer-to-peer electronic cash, really, where you can pay for things with merchants directly. With super low fees and basically instant, you have custody over the actual funds yourself. And there's so many cool features that emerge from this, right? I won't go through all of them because this is a passport discussion, but like pay to email, it's just a cool feature we're going to have where you can put in an email address and it'll resolve to a Obsidian public key, and everything beyond that point is encrypted anyway. So it's okay to associate your email address with it, right? Unlike Ethereum, no one's going to do that. That's crazy. But this allows you to do this really cool, linking your contacts, pay friends through the email address, that kind of stuff. And it's also ZK. There's no counterparty here because you have this signed JWT when you sign in with Apple or sign in with Google. And we have circuits that can you prove ownership of the email address this way. It's kind of like the ZK email approach. And you can also hook into ZK email as well through these DKIM signatures. And then by proving that you own an email address, you have the right now to update the associated mapping of an address or whatever it is. So all these cool, crypto and ZK features now can come into this wallet, this product that we're building to provide essentially like a Revolut experience, but with crypto rails and privacy and compliance. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, one thing that really strikes me is just how a lot of it's called decentralized and like applied cryptography technology has made this possible, say over the past 10 years, right? Starting with Bitcoin, peer-to-peer electronic cash. This solves the double spend problem. We have Ethereum emerge after that, programmable smart contracts secured by a blockchain. And then, of course, now we're talking about ZK, Aztec,
programmable privacy.
Programmable privacy, and this is incredible, right? Like, I don't know if we need to necessarily focus on just ZKPassport, because what you're talking about with Obsidian sounds super cool. Theo just mentioned it to me before we started, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you guys are doing this. That is super cool. So I don't know if there's any like docs or anything you want to share or announcements about that. Happy to promote that. I can drop that in the chat as well. But I want to maybe take I definitely want to talk a bit more about privacy and identity, but because we've been talking about these technologies, I wanted to ask you guys, like, what comes next, like after this? Like, obviously there's a lot to build, but like, what kind of technology do you think might exist in 5 years that could solve some of the problems you're facing while you're building all of this? Or like, if you just had like the unlimited resources, like, boom, we can have 50 engineers work on solving some problem. Like, what could be unlocked? Again, this is really...
Well, if the mythical man month thing wasn't a reality, which it unfortunately is, to kind of just get 50 engineers and just put them on this, they'll get it done in like, I guess, a couple of weeks at that rate. But we'd probably... There's so many cool things. So for ZKPassport to be a reality, it involved us, because we're so early to this, we needed to build out a lot of the actual tooling on mobile to allow mobile proving. So we created SWA, which is Swift and Noir. And then there's like a Noir Droid version for Android. So that's been really cool to build out. And very recently, as we've been working with Aztec, and they've managed to get the memory, the peak memory down by 500 megabytes to a gigabyte lower, which is huge, because that's always the kind of the barrier. And we need to have it client side proving, mobile proving. Because
for privacy, right?
Yeah, essentially that's exactly it. And that's where the magic, this is where this shines, is you have the sensitive data never leaves the user's device. That's critical. It's super important. You can have delegated proving for some things maybe. So we have these like 4 sub-proofs to be able to do this on mobile. The first one is just like verifying the root certificate, sign the intermediate certificate. So it's okay to delegate that perhaps, but the others involve more sensitive passport data. So we will be building out, we'll continue to build out the tooling and squeezing optimizations out, because a lot of work to be done there. Also like GPU, like Apple Metal kind of proving to squeeze even more out of it. So there's that side of it. We have the integration with Aztec, which is really exciting. That's the sequencer. Zebra resistance. I think that's super cool to think about, actually. Let's talk about that. How about you, Theo?
I think, a lot of there's technical concern regarding like proving performance, definitely, like optimization. But beyond technical, there's also a major UX struggle because the actual process of scanning your passport may not be obvious to everyone, because first of all, you need to understand that there's a chip in it and it's not obvious where it is, and the process is not very common. So you're not gonna...
Every different all countries decided to choose a different place to put the chip for some reason. They couldn't. They managed to get solidarity and like the actual standards, so the MRTD chip and the 933 spec, but they couldn't all get together and get a consensus on a location.
Yeah, the chip is often in different places. I do think they're starting to converge on like putting it all into the photo page because there's been a move recently to make polycarbonate pages, so like hard pages for where you see your photo, and the chip is in there. So like most countries are converging toward that, but so far it's like still like very wide distribution of like chip placement. So users,
the current approach, which isn't ideal, but like our designers created like 3 different animations, depending on where we think the chip may be, and we just show a different animation.
Yeah,
it's going to be a better way though.
Yeah, that's definitely like an argument to be made there, because like even if the tech works well, like the NFC reading part works well, if the UX is not obvious, it's still difficult for the user. So that's definitely something we want to find time to refine. There's a lot to be done on that. Other blockers would be the MRZ as well. So like when you do the scan process, you have to read that this kind of like 2 lines on passport. On ID cards, it's like national ID is 3 lines at the back. But like these, essentially, they read locally with an OCR, and we use that. The app uses that locally to derive the authentication key to the chip. So that's what we need. That's why it's needed.
Yeah, and the same thing happens at the airport. When you put your passport down, there's an OCR reader, and that's important because otherwise people could just skim your butt and scan the passport without you. So you need to have that as a way to communicate with the chip.
So you need the information, so that way you can't just randomly scan someone's passport. You actually need to open it to be able to do it. And the issue is that the OCR, well, most of the time it works, but sometimes it will recognize the wrong characters. We do have some kind of mechanism to prevent that. There's some checksum, but those are they're not very good because they got a lot of like collision. So like, because it's like
1 in 10 chance, is it?
Yeah.
Checksum passes or not.
You just got 1 digit for the checksum, so it's just like 1 in 10 chances that actually you're gonna have like a wrong combination, but with the right checksum.
That actually just made me think. I mean, the skimming issue is one that seems very obvious now that you mention it. Like, of course, somebody could just be like, but the other thing is that makes me wonder. I mean, one, for the OCR, optical character recognition, for people who are wondering, if I could see that getting complicated. Many different languages, not just Latin characters, being able to encode and decode that.
I did have this whole vibe code session recently, in like 3 different languages. That's what I thought you meant, but it was like 1 in Rust, 1 in Swift. And basically, long story short, we do have a really cool update in the works. Don't worry, it's not fully vibe coded. Like, we check it afterwards to make sure it's solid. But that's going to be, I think, much better at recognizing the characters and using heuristics and like running this special, it's basically an algorithm that improves it.
I mean, like it's like for the MRZ, they only allow specific characters. They have like an apparently optimized font for like machine reading, but it's not that optimized. I would say, for example, the zeros and the O's is a good example of how not optimized it is, because they're not very hard. They're not very easy to tell apart, like zeros and O's. If it was good optimized, you would have like a bar in the middle of the zero, but it's not there.
Hey, would you guys like a demo? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry, wait for the lull, but you kept going because of the delay.
No, it's all right. You can go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought I could give a quick demo of ZKPassport.
That's an awesome idea. Are you just mirroring to your screen
yeah.
there?
There's no quick time.
Perfect.
So I'll do a screen share and just try my hardest not to dox myself.
Did you activate the blur mode, Michael?
No, I didn't, but that's okay because I deleted it all. Ooh. All right, cool. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So this is ZKPassport.
I'll do it like this.
That's like the first screen, and then let me just get my browser up actually. So yeah, I'll go here, demo, and you guys can try this at home too. This is like currently up and fully working. So I'm going to open up. Oh, my phone stopped mirroring. Let's try this again. Classic. Let me just disconnect, reconnect.
We can do it like that.
Okay, cool. Okay, there we go. And then
Okay,
passport. So normally I would actually scan my passport, but I'm not going to do that this time because you'll see all my details. I would scan my RZ and then I would hold it. I'll hold my passport up to my phone and it would read it in. but I can activate this dev mode because we created this. I'm one of the developers, so I can do that. Here's what it would look like, potentially, right? He's from the Zero Knowledge Republic, John Smith, and I can use this now. So this will be like a proper run through. And there's a real ZK circuits, this is doing real proving. It's just a test account. This won't work in production. So I could do like proof of country, proof of name, so proof of country. So I'll just scan this with my phone. Uses this like WebSocket bridge for an end-to-end encrypted channel. And then I will confirm it. It basically explains like what is the website requesting here. You always have the choice as the user to reject it or confirm it. I'll confirm. That's going to generate the zero knowledge proof on my mobile device, and then it's going to send that proof over the WebSocket bridge, the encrypted WebSocket bridge, to the front end, where it's then verified. In the back end, for example. So we use this for the DevCon and the DevConnect ticket discount integration.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That was was that real time? That was
all real time?
Yeah. That was all real time. That's the zero knowledge proof being generated in real time on your phone. Very cool.
So you had like here in this process, you had like 4 subproofs, like the idea of the subproofs that Michael talked about. But like the 3 first actually generated only once, because those are for the signature. We don't need to generate them again, except maybe the 3rd one. Sometimes it's regenerated. But like if you do the process after, it would be even faster. So it would be like 1 to 2 seconds, because those proof can be just reused.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Wow, that is super cool. I actually, when I spoke to you and Niall in Cannes at ETHCC, I downloaded the app, but I still haven't gotten around to testing it out because it.
Oh, that was the first time that you've seen ZKPassport, the app.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I downloaded the app, but I didn't have my passport on me, and then the actual app icon was kind of like in the back of my pages there. So this is good.
Oh, you gotta try it out. It's such a cool feeling, like seeing your own face load up with your own details, right?
That is awesome. Oh man, and there's so many things I could talk to you guys about this for hours, like working and tracking what different governments are doing in terms of their registries and how you stay on top of that. That is one thing. I mean, there's the privacy aspect, which we talk about a lot. Something before we wrap up, I do want to maybe get into a slightly spicy topic. Your thoughts on why government-attested identity maybe has properties that are better than something like a biometric identity verification approach, sort of strengths, weaknesses, comparisons. I would love to hear your takes on that, because I think it's a really, really interesting topic that a lot of people have been talking about lately. So I'll try to not make too many enemies.
I love the World team, by the way. I think they're great. They're really nice people. They're really great. I think that maybe one of the questions comes down to whether or not the device, the OBS are permissioned. It's the best to be like open hardware, isn't it? So that's great. I think, I guess that aside, maybe we don't want to. What wouldn't be ideal is to have identity maybe like private, owned by a private corporation. We'd want to have, in my mind at least, what makes the most sense is to have government attested identity. They're the most responsible entity. And then also you don't risk state capture by. Sorry, what were you going to say?
So if you have this idea of privately owned, so you have the company privately owned, they're not accountable to anyone but their stakeholders. A government, especially in a democratic country, is accountable to its people that can vote them out. So that accountability is different. So that's why in the context of identity, since it's more controlled by the people indirectly, it's better. But not in all countries, obviously. Some countries are more dictatorship, but for democratic countries, it is at least.
TE is, I think it's a great technology. I think that it's really difficult to have it foolproof. Whereas a government attested signature is foolproof. As long as they don't leak the private keys, that's very foolproof. But if you have the world's most secure TE, which hasn't really happened yet, even Intel TDX and others, as great as they are, people are finding ways to side channel attacks and other clever techniques. And so ultimately you can have the most sophisticated device, but if there's a way that you can you can fake it because you've got a copy of whatever it might biometrics to replay into the device, and then, oh, cool, now my orb can, now my whatever can like mint infinite, biometric identifiers. You'd need some way to track that and to be able to disable that particular one for minting that. And that's, maybe one of the designs you would use initially, even if there is like a road to having it fully open and eventually decentralized. And when I say decentralized here, I mean more so like not controlled by one central actor or like organization. That's a really long road. And I don't know if there's going to be a way to ever get there, but you have such a sophisticated TE that no one can crack it. And then also it's open hardware. Okay. That almost goes against, that. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, my take on that would be that the governments are the most responsible and most suitable role for that particular purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I never really considered that specific angle to it. Like governments are accountable to their citizens, and that gives them an incentive to do a good job in this regard, and make sure these identity systems are reliable and secure. Because if they're not, people are going to be unhappy. Whereas a privately owned or privately controlled entity has a different set of stakeholders that might not be aligned with.
Not aligned. There you go. And that's, I know it's important to you guys.
Exactly. It's all about alignment and letting people control their identity and, maintain privacy.
Yeah, we had this originally. We had like own your identity way back as a thing we were using. But now I think everyone's using it. So that kind of, we didn't even trademark it. It's fine. I don't really care. But I noticed like literally so many projects are using own your identity. Just when I checked recently, I can't believe status. Status. It's fine. I love it. Everyone can use this. But status is now own your identity. I didn't understand how that related to status. But it does somehow.
Yeah.
And just one more thought actually on what we're saying, because this is very interesting. I was looking to this yesterday. So, with the biometrics, the ability to have this unique identifier emerge. If there's some way that you could have this like, almost like a biological challenge mechanism with the body to have this like a trapdoor function, a biological trapdoor function. This is what I was looking into. I was doing like a deep research on this. There's no like, I don't know if anyone's discovered anything close to this, but you can imagine like some kind of a trap. When I say trapdoor function, I mean something that's like, that's the foundation of cryptography, where you have something that's easy to do one way, but almost impossible to do the other way. So you could, and the challenge part of this would be like, through maybe some biological mechanism we have that we just can't reproduce because of the complexity. And there's this way to have a fingerprint emerge from it. That would be the best biometrics ever. But until that day comes, you have these TEs that kind of fill that gap to provide this identifier. And there's gaps in that one. So.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing, right? Like the live biometrics proof of or liveness check, right? Like I haven't actually tested out ZKPassport, the app yet, but what if your passport is stolen, right? Like could somebody use your passport to create proofs that they are you?
We have a really amazing feature. Great question, Boris, and we have an amazing feature in the roadmap. Should we talk about it, Theo, or should we just make it a surprise when it comes out?
I mean, we can talk about it, I guess. It's like
So the idea here is that you've got this this liveness check where you can do using your iPhone with the mobile TE. So I guarantee here you can do a face scan like this, and it'll derive a face fingerprint. Raremo is doing something similar, and then it'll compare the face fingerprint from the liveness check against the fingerprint derived from your passport photo, which is so cool, right? And then you can prove that you're the person on the passport or national ID, but never reveal your face. So it's encrypted essentially.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I thought of that because you mentioned this sort of like a biological fingerprint liveness check. I mean, my background is in like cell and molecular biology and like proteomics.
Cool.
So I'm like, I haven't thought about the sort of like serum mass spectrometry that could in the future hypothetically be used for something like this. But yeah, because you mentioned Raremo, I mean, something again. Could talk to you guys about this for hours. There's a lot of really cool identity related projects that are using ZK, yourselves, Raremo, Self. I guess we can include World there, and we're also working with.
By the way, I don't know if maybe people know this, but World are using our circuits, which is actually super cool. Yeah.
Cool.
They started to experiment with it because like they're building their backend for Noir, so they're going to use Noir for their circuits for when they're going to generate zero knowledge proof for from passport and national IDs, and they've been experimenting with our circuits.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean that's a bit of alpha maybe, but yeah,
I guess it goes to show, right? Open source really is for the whole world.
And that's what it's all about, right? Like we, on our end, we also, 100% open source all the time. We want people to use technology that is useful. But yeah, I was saying like there's a lot of really smart people working on really cool approaches to solving identity, and I think it'd be great to do another stream with like all the teams, get a little round table going.
Oh, that'd be spicy too. That'd be great.
Yeah, that could be cool. So something I'm gonna try to figure out. But coming back to privacy, maybe one of the closing questions that I want to ask you guys, because I know it's getting a little bit late on your side of the world, is privacy, right? Like I think everyone here and probably most of the people listening agree that privacy is important and understand it's important, but maybe the average person doesn't really think about this. People put their information out everywhere, and until there's a leak and something happens or the identity is stolen, they don't really think about this. So I'm
like
curious.
Someone spills the tea, maybe.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. We didn't even get into that. That's a whole other topic. But yeah, it's like how are you thinking about privacy for the individual? Like it's an important feature that maybe people don't care about. I've seen debates about whether or not people are willing to pay for privacy. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, as I mentioned before, most people don't think about privacy, and you mentioned that too. So, but that doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means that most of the time when they're going to use a product and they're going to start to input private information, they're going to assume this is going to be kept private. This is an assumption they make because for them that's the obvious thing. So when they take a photo, they assume that's not going to be shared everyone unless they actually share it. So obviously people use Instagram a lot and they're not being shy about showing themselves. But if they take a picture, it's in their photo library and they don't share it actively on the social media, they assume it's private. If they go on their banking app, they do transaction, they assume that this is only visible to them and maybe their bank, and that's it. So they're making the assumption of privacy.
The default for them. So it's like
default. It's a default. Privacy is a default because this is just they don't need to think about it. So that people are conflating not thinking and not caring, which are two different things. So it doesn't mean that they don't care, they just don't think about it too much. But when there are cases where that data is becoming exposed, then they actually show care for being exposed to the public. I mean, like, for example, the recent T app leak, this is a good example of that. I mean, they've been sharing like pretty private information, like they have selfie and IDs, and that ended up getting leaked. Obviously, that people got complained a lot, obviously, because like they do care about privacy.
Not speaking to like whether or not I agree with what the T product does, but that would have been such an amazing use case for like a ZKPassport integration, because you could literally like prove your gender by just prove that you're a male or a female. I don't know, it could be quite controversial depending how you use that, but yeah, this would have been like the most amazing integration, because even if they get hacked, all they get is a bunch of proofs that just all prove that they're female. Nothing else at this. The principle of least knowledge. But also, there's other possible maybe a term here is like principle of least disclosure, which would be trying to prove that you're over 18. Then that's all that you should be needing to reveal, right? That you're over 18. Not everything about you on the ID. You could apply that to pretty much anything. And then I think, we did get into this, but like, KYC, there's a lot of work to be done here on the regulatory side and the compliance side and what is satisfactory. But yeah, there's just so many amazing use cases that we're excited about like exploring. Yeah.
As for paying for privacy, I don't think you want to sell privacy as a selling point. So you want to integrate
that sounds
privacy.
Horrible. That's like would like steal your privacy and you're the product unless you pay us, and then we won't.
But I don't know if you noticed that, but Instagram has started doing this, or Meta in general. So you can actually pay.
Well, these are always the products. on that platform, right?
Yeah, so you can actually pay a monthly fee for having your data private. If you
Don't be
don't pay
included
it,
in our training set.
yeah, essentially. Because I got
Aish.
asked that recently. You need to pay €8 per month if you don't want your data to be processed.
I forgot to opt out of the Slack thing that happened recently, so I think we're all part of the training set now. in Slack.
Man, I wasn't even aware of this, and I'm using
This is like a week
Instagram
ago, I think.
every day.
I think it all really comes down to like respecting the user, and that's one of our core values is privacy, but also like one of the core principles is respecting the user. Consider yourself the user. We consider us one of the users, and part of that is informed consent. If there's any kind of like analytics or any kind of like error reporting that comes back to us, and it also extends to privacy. And we design for ourselves and how we'd like to use the product, and that includes respecting ourselves and therefore respecting the user.
I think Apple is a good example of that because they have all those like small features around privacy, consent, and stuff like this. Then other OS might not have gone to that length, essentially.
Yeah, I think Microsoft doesn't give a shit. Sorry. I'm sure I love Microsoft. I think they're great.
No, but something to look into would be, for example, and I think you shared that before, Michael, is the design of Apple Pay versus the design of Google Pay.
Actually, Google would have been actually the term. Yeah. Google's.
So Apple Pay is much more privacy centric than the Google.
Yeah, I mean, and advertising is Google's bread and butter. Well, I mean, now the cloud infrastructure is kind of coming in there, but so maybe their whole mental model and like approach to things is different for that reason. They were always harvesting and using data to improve ad targeting, and so on the payment integration part, that also maybe informs some design decisions.
Yeah, they didn't want to leave any money on the table, so to speak. Yeah, no, that's a really cool perspective. Like, identity is something that we all individually care about. So, you are a user of the product you're building, which for some people, if it's more like abstract infrastructure, unless you're like a hardcore engineer building distributed systems, I'm thinking about some stuff I'm working with on a regular basis and communicating. It's like I don't launch roll-ups myself, so it's a little harder for me to maybe empathize with the user in a very concrete way. Whereas you could ostensibly be verifying your identity with your passport to access a certain website that wants to make sure that you're at least 18 years old, or of some specific country. So, yeah, that's very cool. I mean, yeah, I want to be mindful of time, and I have like a huge list of questions I want to keep asking you. But I think this might be a good place to wrap up with a couple of like kind of call to action questions, because you mentioned integrations, you mentioned some other cool stuff you're cooking. How should people follow along if they're excited about what you're building? What should they do if they want to stay up to date, if they want to build using ZKPassport or anything else? Where should we send people? What do you
I'd say follow us on Twitter, X, in ZKPassport. We have docs.zkpassport.id. Check out the website, zkpassport.id. We also have a registry explorer, registry.zkpassport.id, that allows you to go through and you can see all the root certificates that we use. That's essentially the source of trust. If anyone knows anyone from like Pornhub or like any adult websites that might need age gating, we've got a biz dev joining the team recently that's going to try to get some integrations happening. So reach out, let us know. A Reddit would be another great example. And yeah, if you're excited about this technology, where it creates all these new primitives, it's almost a new paradigm. The way it inverts it, it gives the power to the user, allows them to own their identity, the data, and they can prove things themselves. And then if you're excited about that, reach out to us on Twitter, slide into our DMs, and we'll help you along sharing docs and help you integrate.
That's awesome. Theo, any closing notes?
I mean, like as Mike said, yeah, we could follow us on the socials. We unfortunately don't have really a Discord set up, so that would have been maybe something we could think about to follow up with people a little bit better. But for now, it's mostly Twitter. DMs will be pretty responsive. by email as well if you want more detailed assistance if you have any issue with the app. So we're very open to feedback so we can improve the UX, fix bugs and stuff. So we've been doing this a lot this past few weeks with the STech integration. We got a lot of feedback, so we improved the app pretty quickly. But we still need more. And so the more feedback we get, the better the experience will be for everyone. So that's
and for everyone that's been trying it out, thanks a lot for your patience, and please keep trying. We're going to maximize the compatibility and try to get it so that near 100% of passports and national IDs work. We'll also probably put a link to that, maybe the Discord on the website at some point, maybe within a day or two, if anyone cares to check, because we should build up a community with the Discord, I think, at some point. I think maybe just to kind of close it out, as my view on identity infrastructure and why we're building this and making it non-profit, incredibly neutral, and why it's important. I think as a user as well, we want to be able to have this infrastructure usable by anybody, not without any kind of profit incentive coming in to distort maybe the way it's used. And I think this is the best way to do this. And so we want to really have this as this neutral infrastructure that we don't get any special privileges into it. We consume it as with the Obsidian wallet, for example, and other products we make, just like anybody else would. And it's all out there, and anyone can plug in. It's open source. Anyone can use it.
Yeah, public goods are good, and I think a lot of us are in this sort of broader Ethereum ecosystem because of these values. So that's beautiful. I also just didn't even think about verified identity gated discords and telegrams. That would be incredible for
that would be cool, actually.
The number of bots.
Yes, we wanted to make a bot where even the QR code can come via Discord, and you can just kind of put the whole flow there without ever leaving Discord.
Yeah, that'd be incredible, right? Because I don't know, that's something that I've definitely had to deal with a lot, just a lot of bots and stuff. But anyway, Michael, Theo, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone listening, I hope this was great. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have ideas for future guests or questions, please let me know. I'd love to bring on more people that you'd like to hear from. But yeah, again, guys, thanks once more. And,
thank you.
Thanks for your time, Boris. This has been great, mate.
This is great. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Bye-bye.